Welcome to Diversity, Inclusion and Equality in the Workplace. As the Executive Director of the Canadian Congress on Inclusive Diversity and Workplace Equity, Alex works with many seasoned experts, researchers, and trainers worldwide to offer a variety of strategic services that organizations, institutions, and the government require to develop their leaders, equitable policies, and build a cohesive and inclusive corporate culture. And so with that, I am pleased to introduce Alex, and I'll hand it over to you now. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Annabelle, and thank you to everybody for being here today. Yeah, it is no doubt that the world is undergoing some tremendous changes. It is no doubt that the world is in need of more effective leadership. It is no doubt that it is time that we must come together to discuss how to cope with the changes that we find ourselves, and not just the pandemic, which has been so disastrous, and our hearts go out to those who've lost loved ones. I went to 10 funerals last year. I've been to 4 this year, so it is really close to home. But also there's this work evolution going on, and the hybrid work, and so many changes that we have to contend with. So when I was invited to come and speak to HR managers and directors and executives and those who are really concerned about, how to deal with what I would call how to thrive through the pandemic, because we can thrive through a situation. I often believe that, where there's life, there's hope. So I was excited, to be talking to you today. Now I understand there's a question and answer platform or a comments platform. I encourage you, I'll be looking at it myself. I encourage you, as I walk you through this short presentation I have today, I encourage you to put a comment, whatever resonates with you. In fact, your comment may be what somebody gets off this program. I often tell people, never hold back what you claim to believe in. Never hold back what inspires you. Never hold back information that could also be beneficial to other people. So when they say question and answer, it doesn't really have to be question and answer. Yes, I'll be looking out for a question if you want me to elaborate on anything, but more so, let's truly come together. Even though we're in a virtual world, we can still truly come together. And if you can hear me, go right now in the chat and say, yes, I can hear you. And I know most of you, if not all of you, are from Alberta, but you may be from somewhere else. But go right now and let me make sure that this is an engaging presentation. Like I said, I've been invited to talk on the topic of diversity, inclusion, and equity. So I'm going to walk you through a couple of PowerPoint presentations, especially for those who are more visual. But over the course of the presentation, I'll be sharing more information beyond what you see on the PowerPoint. So again, please go right now, put in some comments as I share my slide. If you can see the slide, say, yes, I can. Yes, I can. We should never allow the virtual world that we find ourselves take away from the humanity that we must demonstrate. I often tell people when I speak in conferences, which I do quite often, I used to spend 80% of my time outside Canada speaking internationally, but within the last 2 years, it's from one Zoom call to the other. But I often say, even if you are muted, we can't hear you physically, still respond. Can you hear me? Say, yes, I can.
Yes, they can hear you. They're putting it in the chat.
I know that. I feel that, but I want them to say that. Answer yourself. Say it loud. That there's power still in being vocal. So again, I'll be talking on the topic of inclusion and diversity, inclusion, and equity in the workplace. Thank you for the introduction again and the invitation, Annabelle. I just go through some of the linear objectives today, which you already have there. We'll be talking about some of the provincial and federal standards and regulation that employers that you all can foster, that can help you to foster inclusive diversity and workplace equity. We get lots of questions, is this right? Is this the right thing to do? How do we do this? And it's good. It's good that people are asking questions. It's good that people want to know how things need to be done, because for far too long, my friends, organizations, frankly, have run organizations sometimes from one perspective and one perspective alone. One of the organizations we just completed a 9-month contract with, established 1926 or 1929, have never even trained on diversity, never gone through their policy from a diversity lens, and none of that. So we're finding if there was ever a time to come together and discuss some of these issues, opportunities, it is now. So you already have that linear objective. It's the same one that you probably have on the website. I will be leaving you at the end of it with some practical advice for achieving positive outcomes. These are things that work, not things we think will work, but these are case studies that I'll be sharing with you in this presentation. Let me open with a quotation. I just thought summarizes what we are focused on right now in this presentation, but certainly, what most people are thinking, especially those who are concerned about social justice, those who are concerned about equity, those who are concerned about, maximizing the diversity in the organization. The problem is never diversity. The world itself is diverse. Look at the trees and the fruits and the birds. Look at the skies. We're all diverse. So the problem is never diversity. When people say, Alex, we want to increase diversity in our organization. No, that's not. You want to make your organization more inclusive to attract, if any, aspect of diversity that you may be lacking in. So, my friends, nothing makes the world more beautiful and wonderful than its diversity, than the differences in our creation, humanity, and perspective. It is strategic, therefore, to leverage diversity in every form to maximize the growth of people and profit. I know as an organization, we tend to focus on profit. I spent almost 20 years working in some of the biggest banks here in Canada and in other technology organizations. And I know whenever we get into that executive meeting, is how do we increase the bottom line? How do we move the needle? How do we increase the stock price? But it is time that we focus on what matters most. It is time that we focus on the actual component of our organization that will enable us not just to make profit, but to sustain the profit. Is one thing, making profit is another one, to sustain it. And I propose to you today that if there's any strategy that will enable you not just to make profit, but to sustain it, it is diversity. Diversity. Can somebody say diversity? Yes, just say to yourself, diversity. I may not hear you. Just say diversity. Go on the chat, put diversity. Now, when I'm speaking to learned people here, people who certainly would have gone through some form of training on what diversity is, equity, and inclusion. So, but let me throw a slide, a borrowed slide. I thought this very short, very sharp, very concise. Diversity, all the ways in which people differ, all the ways the world differ, all the way your organization differ, all the way the perspectives differ, all the way your employees, everybody differ. So that's diversity, simple. Equity, a little challenge, challenges. Some may want to understand what's the difference between that, equity and equality and things like that. But equity is fair treatment, fair access, fair opportunity, fair advancement, right? So sometimes I go into an organization as a consultant and I ask questions that take them by surprise. I go, can I see the list of the last 25 people that got an award in your organization? And they're like, huh? And when they bring the list, even themselves recognize that that list, it may be equal, it may be considered fair, but it's not equitable. If everybody on that list in an organization that have some form of ethnic diversity, if everybody look the same, talk the same, then you have not taken the extra step to move from equality to equity. Inclusion, on the other hand, there's a variety of people have power, a voice, especially, my friends, in decision-making authority. One of my first job as a young man was in the call center, right? I used to receive calls from all over Canada. I received calls from Vancouver, and they say, oh, I pay the bank so much money. They take so much money from me. I want to speak to somebody with no accent. Like, I'm calling you and you have some accent. Then I speak French as well, so I get called from French. Bonjour, monsieur, comment je peux vous aider? He goes, c'est quoi ça? What kind of French you're speaking? I said, but don't you understand me? Yes, I do, but I don't like your accent. So we used to get all this stuff, and unfortunately, some of my colleagues then, in hindsight, I'm talking decades ago, I used to see some of them crying in the washroom. Why am I saying this? Your HR. Some of them crying in the washroom because they've been abused, really, and they'll tell us at work then, oh, the customer is always right, but we are learning that sometimes the customer needs some training as well. So, but in essence, just an overview of the differences between equality, equity, diversity, certainly, and inclusion. Why now? Why now? Can somebody say why now? Why diversity and why now? Great question. I do get that question sometimes on my LinkedIn, on my social media. Why now? Why now? Why now? Well, my answer, very short answer I have for that. If not now, come on, when? If not us, who? If not now, when? If not us, who? We all know the story of George Floyd. I've been speaking at training on diversity and leadership and other aspects of leadership since 1999. It's been a little while I've been doing that. But, after the passing of George Floyd, we know things needed to be different. We needed to move from just going there and talking about diversity to start to ensure organizations have corporate strategy, to ensure that they have diversity curriculum, to ensure that their leaders are being coached on how to avoid microaggression and unconscious bias, and some of these things that have come for far too long have been part of the culture of organization. We're all Canadians, mostly, I believe, and we know the story of the indigenous, breaks my heart, shattered my heart to pieces. And I know, same for you as well, right? From 215 graves now, statistics, I Googled it, almost 5,000. They found 5,000, right? The people who are using this technology are saying now they need about $1 billion and 10 years to go through some of those residential schools to find the remains of young children, even as young as 3. So why now? If not now, when? If not us, who? Right? In Toronto, some of you may have heard, or London, in Ontario, a Muslim family of 4 was knocked down by a car, taken out. Hate crime, the police calls it. Right. So when we say Black Lives Matter, we're not saying no other lives matter. We are saying it's basically saying all lives matter. Right? Why exclude a particular group of people from the progress and from promotion, from even employment? All right, because of the color of your skin. So if not now, when people say why diversity, why now? My question is, if not now, when? If not us, who? It was Martin Luther King who once said, until a person can rise above his individualistic concern for a broader concern of humanity, he's not fit to live. When I saw that almost 20 years ago, I'm like, I love this quotation. I'm going to use that as one of my guiding compass. Until we can rise above our individualistic concern to a broader concern of humanity, Martin Luther King says, we are not fit to live. So thank you again for being part of this presentation. But, we're talking to business managers, executive, HR people. Yes, we want to develop the people. We want to ensure we fight for social justice. We want to ensure that our organization culture is reflective of equity and cohesiveness and all this. This is great. But, it's more than that. It's more than that. Diversity, this is, again, some of the benefits of diversity in the workplace, higher innovation, right? Higher innovation, better decision-making, faster problem solving, variety of different perspectives brings increased creativity, higher employee engagement, better company reputation, especially in this time that we find ourselves in, improved hiring results, and certainly reduced turnover. I'm sure, you can do your research and probably find up to 100. I think we're close to that, right? I have my team of speakers and consultants. We gather these benefits and analyze them, and we have close to that. So, but I thought this was a good snapshot of the benefits. Now, let me take you down on some of the federal and provincial standards. Very important, certainly in the position that most of you hold. Some of the questions we get, Alex, we appreciate the report, or we appreciate the suggestion or the strategy, but I don't know, can we just go out and ask employees, what do you identify as? Yes, we can, as Obama will often say. Can we go out and ask employee, what they identify as with regards to their orientation? Yes, you can. Now, the employees do have the right to refuse to answer that question. But whether you have the right to create a strategy that is going to enable you to better understand the diversity in your organization, you do have the right. You certainly do. We help organizations to facilitate this. They are what we call soft survey. They are what we call workforce sensors. These are different things. So sometimes they bring me in to speak to the organization. And then, I'm sharing this as a strategy for those of you who are looking for some strategies to take away. We do a presentation and then we send out a Survey Monkey link. How was the event? It was great, blah, blah, blah. And, towards the end, they say, what do you identify as? Is it Afro-Canadian, African, Caribbean descent? Is it Southeast Asian? Is it this? Is it Caucasian? And the next question is, what do you identify as? Is it male? Is it female? Is it non-binary? So those questions can be there. They have the right to refuse them. But in most cases, when that information is presented in such a way that it is compelling, captivating, and even inspiring, people will be excited to answer those questions. The reason most people don't answer those questions, we've spoken to them, is because they don't fully understand. I don't know what they want with that information. I don't know. I don't know. So, but when people are enlightened, then you would certainly have access to the data. But here's a portion of the charter, the Canadian, the Charter of Rights and Freedom, actually, section 15, subsection 2, which I think captures what we found under the Canadian Human Rights Act, under the Federal Employment Equity Act, under the Alberta Human Rights Commission. Read through the whole website, all of them, everything on that website, read all of them. You are covered. Tell them Alex Ihama says you are covered. Right? So, but it says here, at the same time as it protects equality, the charter also allows for certain laws or programs that aim to improve the conditions of disadvantaged individuals or group. For example, programs that are aimed at improving employment opportunities for women, for indigenous people, for visible minorities, i.e. Black, i.e. South Asian, i.e. Chinese, like for visible minorities, or those with mental and physical disabilities. They are allowed under this subsection. Now, I'm going to propose to you 3 steps. We have a lot more, but because of time, I will be sharing 3 steps right after this, the next slide. So for those taking notes, get ready. I'm going to share 3 ways, three steps that can help to foster balanced representation. Balanced representation is really what we all talk about today. Every organization, Alex, we're going to hire some people of African descent as members of our board of directors. That is great. Alex, we're going to hire some women. Like the next position for director, we are going to make sure it's a female. That's great too. That's great. These are all great stuff. These are all great initiative, right? So, but all of them comes under what we call the quest for balanced representation. The quest for balanced representation. That is really what it is, right? So even when we talked about the Employment Act or talk about the Charter, Human Rights Charter, all this, it really comes down to balanced representation. But before you go and hire diversity, as people say, or hire people of different ethnic background or different gender, we propose to you that you should have data analytics. Most organizations don't have this. That we've spoken to. We've done survey. We run at the Canadian Congress on Inclusive Diversity and Workplace Equity. We do event this year alone. Yes, this year alone, we've done event that impacted over 10,000 people. Like we did an indigenous event, almost 612 people, across Canada, executives and HR directors and entrepreneurs and politicians, professors attended. And most of them, I agree that yes, they may have put, how to say, the cart before the horse before the cart, one of those things, right? But data analytics, basic diversity data, including gender, ancestry or ethnicity, orientation, age category. These are basic. These are basic information that you will need. You will need this to effectively create a diversity strategy. It's not a what if, but should I, could I have, maybe. you will need data. Like when you want to open up a new branch of your business, or you want to get into a new product line, you need data. You got that data. Should we open up a branch in Berlin or in London or in India, right? Should we open up a branch in, I don't know, Jamaica, right? You need data. In the same way, if you want to change the culture of your organization, in the same way, if you want to make your corporate culture more inclusive and equitable, you need data. Data analytics, really critical. I know sometimes it's complex. We work for government organization or hospital. They say, oh, Alex, no, there are regulations and there are policies. Well, I bring good news to you today. You're covered as long as you're gathering the data. It clearly says, as long as you're gathering this data to help underrepresented group, you are covered. Tell somebody you're covered. I miss life events. So yes, we're covered, right? So the next one is targeted recruitment. Targeted recruitment. Targeted, I didn't say recruitment. I didn't say go after, women or go after Black or Indigenous. No. Targeted recruitment. When you have data now shows you where the gap exists, right? So we did work for one sport organization. We found out that all their coaches, most of them anyway, almost 90% of the coaches were male and they were white. Right? We're in Canada. I'm not talking this sport organization was in the moon. No, right here in Canada, 90% male and white. So obviously data was able to say, hey, we need to increase those who identify as female as coaches, because many of them are there. We need to get some Black people who are qualified. Now, you don't just go pick them and say, okay, we need to have people from minoritized group. No, of course, you still go through, but your preferred candidate, right? So by law, listen to this. I'm not a lawyer, by the way, but I did research it. You can too as well. By law, you can actually have in your job description and say this position, preference will be given to people of indigenous background. Preference will be given to those who identify as female. By law, you're covered. So, when you do targeted recruitment, the job description, it's okay to have that job description. People say, but Alex, we post it and all we got were this particular ethnic group. Well, my question is, as Albert Einstein said, when we keep doing the same thing all over and all over again, it becomes insanity. If you're not getting the results you want, why do you keep posting it on your website? Your website obviously is attracting the same ethnic group. So when we work with organizations, we influence them or suggest to them to partner with community organizations to also ensure that your job posting. So there's an organization called BBPA, the Black Business Professional Association, one of the oldest and the strongest Black organization in Canada, so much so that I think Stephen Harper, who used to be the prime minister, wanted to go do business in the Caribbean, invited the president of the organization to go along with him. So the organization is recognized as an organization that builds and empower and empower people of African descent. You want to hire a Black executive, you want to hire somebody, a Black director or whatever, those are organizations that you can post your job description in. So I'm proposing to you today that if you want to achieve balanced representation, we need to think differently. We can post those job descriptions on websites that attract, that we know that are frequented by people of the ethnic background we claim to be looking for. An example is in Chinatown. Chinatown, and I'm going to presume you have one there in Alberta. We have one here in Toronto. You go to Chinatown, McDonald's is written in Chinese, in Mandarin. The banks, right? You're going to CIBC, you're going to BMO. They are there because they recognize that this is Chinatown. So that's the kind of effort that sometimes we need to do. It's not far-fetched, and in most cases costs extra $0. $0. Yes, if you call BBPA, email them, here's the job posting, boom, they'll post it for you completely free and even thank you for it. Right? So I was just going through LinkedIn just now and I saw somebody posted on his LinkedIn, here are jobs we are looking for. I took a picture of that. After this presentation, I'm going to send it to some ethnic organizations I know. I say, hey, here's some job posting, maybe you have people who can apply for it. So they posting the staff referral works. We can engage and it helps with staff engagement as well. And then thirdly is inclusive accessibility. Absolutely inclusive. It has, and this goes beyond people with mental or physical disability. It goes beyond creating opportunities, as we said earlier on, for the minoritized people in your organization. Sometimes the equipment in the organization needs to change. Sometimes the positioning of even the furniture in the organization needs to change to accommodate, a diversity, to make your culture more inclusive. Policies needs to change. Promotions, the way people are promoted needs to change. Awards, benefit, programs, perks, privileges, right? How accessible are the benefits in your organization? But you say, well, it's there for anybody. No. We are no longer in the era of saying it's there. That is the difference between equality and equity. When you say, well, it's open to everybody, you're talking equality, which is great. But let's go a step further and say, who are those that actually need them? And what do I need to do as an HR manager or HR executive, or as an employer, or as a leader, as a manager? What do I need to do to ensure that this service, this perk, this privilege, this award is equitable? Like I said, if you go through the list of the top 25, last 25, most recent 25 or 40 people who've received awards in the organization, just by looking, you'll be able to tell if that is inclusive or not. I hope I'm talking to somebody. Again, if there are questions, you go on the chat, and I said it doesn't even have to just be question. You can put in, okay, yes, oh wow, yes, Brent Peters, yes, Angie Modasna, yes, oh, I love you all. Jessica Egoste, yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Bridget Hansen, God bless you. I'm glad that you can hear me. Absolutely. Danielle Lebert, I love the heart. I send it right back to you. So before I bring this presentation to a close now, I want to also share with you 5 ways to make your recruitment process inclusive. Can somebody just put recruitment process, because that is really where it starts from. It's really, we find ourselves in the mess we find ourselves today because so in some organizations, the recruitment process has not been inclusive. The recruitment process has not been equitable. That's why we find ourselves in the mess we are today. In the government, in corporations, in schools, in communities, right? So what are 5 ways to make your recruitment process inclusive and equitable? Number 1, are you trained and certified on how to avoid prejudice, discrimination, and biases? Now, I'm not saying, did you go for a diversity workshop? I've been trained. Really? Yeah, I went to this half-an-hour workshop in, this organization. No, that's not that. When I say trained, we all know what's trained. You're HR. That is, you sat down, you were walked. We have a 7-week training program. 7 weeks. I'm telling you, like literally end to end. How do you identify some of all these things? So other university, other organizations do offer some form of training. Human resources managers should be trained and certified on inclusive diversity and workplace equity, on how to identify before you avoid. You only avoid what you've identified: prejudice, discrimination, and biases. And I'll be sharing on that more in my closing. Number 2, I have talked about this workforce census. Right? Canada is, I think it's every 4 years or so, we do census, we identify. In your organization, if it's a small one, maybe every 2 years, maybe every 3 years, but that's it, right? But if for organizations that you have turnover, you have people coming in and going out, it should be updated annually. Annually, you should give people the opportunity to self-identify. Don't say he is white. No, he may look white, but maybe he's from South Africa. And it's white because he's from South Africa. So maybe he was going to identify as African. So, let people self-identify. Very, very important. Human Resource Department should update a workforce census annually, biannually. That's up to you, depending on the size of organization. If you need our help, certainly reach out to us. Now, here's a very important aspect to this. Without associating the staff with the confidential data collected, that must be separated. Thirdly, job posting, I talked about this, must be posted on website that targets candidates or preferred ancestry and share them with professional and organization and ethnic community. Fourthly, career advancement, critical. Before we go out and look for diverse people to bring into the organization, what about the diverse people in the organization, the minoritized people, the racialized, the underrepresented? right? So sometimes all we need to do is just look within, and we'll be able to find out what we're actually in search of. And then fifthly, very important, we are no longer in the era of one person reviewing all the resume, deciding on who to call for an interview and interviewing them. I've been to interviews in my days of corporate, right? Sometimes you're there, there's like 5 white male, right? Or even 3 white male, 2 white female. Like, I'm thinking, okay, is this how the organization look? And that's how people look at it. People want to see themselves in your organization. So the reviewing, the selecting of resumes and interviewing of candidates should be performed by a panel of HR managers, not one person, that is reflective of ethnic and gender diversity. This is just a snapshot. I'm bringing this to a close now, but a snapshot to see that we just talked about balanced representation, maybe touched a bit on education and awareness, but then there are policies and processes. If your HR policy is less than 10 pages, 7 pages, if it's a small organization, then you don't have a comprehensive one yet, because you can't put HR policy that covers diversity and inclusion in a 1-pager. I've seen that in 2-pager, no. In 3-pager, no. You want a sample, we can share with you. And then the strategic partnership, which I talked about, partnering with organizations like BBPA, indigenous business, chamber of commerce, and things like that, and supplier diversity, which I won't even get time to touch on, but quite important. Here's a snapshot of what a diversity training curriculum looks like, right? We're doing this one right now for what they call City of Brampton. It's a big city out here in Ontario. And once a month, we send a speaker to talk of building trust, another speaker talk of act with empathy, another one on how to question self-assumption, use inclusive language, and engage in open dialogue. What's my point? Diversity is a topic that is so complex, you cannot have one speaker talk to it in one session and claim that your organization has been trained. It must be continuous. It must be continuous. For those who love data, here's a sample. These are just samples I'm showing you. I'm not really going to spend too much time on it. You should consider having a dashboard that shows your diversity index, your inclusion index, your equity index, and your systemic racism index. Right? So this is real data we did for an organization. We help them to identify where they are in 2020, help them to set targets for 2021, 2022, and 2023. You cannot manage what you cannot measure, Peter Drucker once said. So again, thank you for the opportunity to be here. The last part here, systemic racism, which we've talked about, unconscious bias. These are some of the things we should watch out for. Microaggression, when you see some of the things we see are reflective of either unconscious bias or microaggression. And of course, the white privilege, which is unearned advantage based on race. It may not be intentional, but these are things you find in organizations. So thanks again for the opportunity. You can find me if you choose to. You can find me on LinkedIn. I'm very active on LinkedIn. Alex Ihama. I'm on social media, or you can find me on the internet and send me email. But this is a snapshot of our organization, and we wish you all the best in your efforts to turn your corporation or your company around and to foster inclusive diversity and workplace equity. Remember this: if not now, when? And if not you, if not us, then who? Thanks again for having me, and God bless you all.
Perfect. Thank you. You do have a question, Alex. I think we have like 1 minute to answer, if you can. It says, what is your opinion on employers deciding whether or not to recognize the September 30th National Day of Truth and Reconciliation by closing the office for the day?
Again, this is my position, but my suggestion is you don't have to close the office if you don't want to, but recognizing it is different from closing it, right? A statement, though, it's recognizing it. We do recognize this happen. We do sympathize, and we will take the time to reflect. That's recognizing it. So, I mean, what you actually do after that, I think is up to you, frankly. But recognizing it, I think if we have any form of humanity, certainly is something that we want to consider. That's my take on that.
Perfect. Thank you. That was a great session. And thank you for closing with such a fantastic session, Alex. So with the first session, we've had run into some technical issues earlier, and it seems that we still have a few technical issues with that. So what we will do is make record the session and make the session available for early next week. And we will send an email to all the attendees who is interested in that first session of the day. So we have come to the end of the masterclass, and I would like to thank you all for joining Employment Law Alberta, brought to you by HRD Magazine. I found it to be a powerful day with topics addressing the HR profession's most pressing legal concerns in the current climate. My hope is that you gain some insight that you will be able to take back to the office and implement effectively. So all our speakers, thank you so much for contributing to today with your expertise and insights, and ultimately contributing to the HR community for a clearer understanding of the future. On October 19th, we have our HR Leaders Summit, and it will be great if you can join. It's going to be all about HR leadership and the key things that the HR world needs to learn about in Canada as a whole. And I believe we are also going to be celebrating the year that we have just had, as we are coming to the end of the year already for 2021. It's going to be addressing leadership in today's climate, and also celebrating your achievements. So again, thank you for joining Employment Law Alberta, and I will see you again soon. So take care and bye.